Love, where you at? Where my people at? I'm at where you at? Where you at? Where my people at? I need you to help me on this mission. Yeah. This is for my brothers trapped in religion. Open up your eyes, break out of the prison. This is for my brothers trapped in religion. sa.neter be the truth, you know he's on a mission. It's sad to see my brothers are so lost. It's sad to see you believe in things that's false. It's sad to see you believe in Jesus, where your logic breaks apart in 1,000 pieces. Oh, God killer, not gonna let that slide. You drowning in a myth, you had nowhere to hide. The HOK is the toughest environment. While we trade blind faith for mental empowerment. I believe in scriptures for your mind, this is the key. It's time to unlearn everything you believe. The house of consciousness, start looking within. That's where the real liberation begins. Oh, this is for my brothers trapped in religion. Open up your eyes, break out of that prison. This is for my brother trapped in religion. sa.neter be the truth, you know he's on a mission. The HOK is more than just a place. It's a tough environment where you check your faith. Bomb squad and pseudo killers who check your sources. Don't come in front cause you will live for losses. The Bible written to break your spirit, built to keep you low, feeding you metaphors, stopping your growth. These is for my brothers trapped in religion. sa.neter be the truth, you know he's on a mission. It's sad to see my brothers all so lost. It's sad to see you believe in things that's false. It's sad to see you believe in Jesus, while your logic breaks apart in 1,000 pieces.
Now that you know what it is, it's in there. We're going to do it today this afternoon. Now that you know what it is, it's in there. We're going to do it today. Yeah. Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2. Hey, family, how do I sound out there? Do it sound a little muffled, or do it sound like a distance or something? Talk to me. I think I heard it a little distance. How I sound out there to y'all? I think I heard it a little. Oh, no, it sounds good to me. It sounds good. I just played it on this side over here. I think I heard it a little. Oh, no, it sounds good to me. It sounds good. I just played. Yeah, my brother, it sounds good. I'm listening to it on my iPad and it sounds good. All right. So we're going to get it in, man. Y'all already know what it is.
We got echo. Hold on a second. Give me
okay.
Let me straighten this out real quick.
Yeah. Hold it up. Go ahead and hold it down. But I want y'all to know, man, that we got Chuck Morgan in the building this afternoon. And you already know Chuck Morgan is getting ready to bring that info. He's getting ready to bring that info right now. You know what I'm saying? And just sit back and relax and enjoy. Shout out to my man Suntan in the building. I see you, brother.
Okay.
This is a hit the masses need to hear. I agree with you, brother. Yeah. This song means a lot to Sa. Yes, it do. All my joints mean a lot to me. Even the songs that the people wrote for me. It's good. You still hear an echo, brother?
I don't hear an echo. It's just you sound kind of low, but I'm gonna work through it.
All right. Well, I'm not going to be doing much of the talking anyway, so I'm going to let you rock because you getting ready to go in. You getting ready to show your slides. Talk to the people. Let them know what you're here to do, brother. You got the floor.
Okay, what I'm here to do is bring some context and clarity to the topic as it pertains to the ancient Sumerians. As many of you may already know, I've put enough time in over the years through taking grammar classes with certain Assyriologists, Dr. Joshua Bowen, and making
hold up for a minute, Chuck.
and Gabriel Barra, and I've been going through this thing,
Chuck,
this particular
you
topic
hear me?
for about 5 years.
See, Chuck, don't hear me.
I wanted to share with this audience just some
Do
of
y'all hear me out
the
there?
information that I was able to bring
Do y'all
forward,
hear me?
and just give you a better perspective.
Yo, Chuck. Chuck, do you hear me?
And their world view as it pertains to themselves specifically, because there's a number. Was that for me?
Yo, Chuck, you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, you're the one that's messed up. You're the one that's choppy. Your sound is messed up. You can see it in the chat. The people are saying you sound a little choppy right now. And yeah, it's coming out choppy a little bit.
Hold on a second.
You might have to just go out and come back in.
Is that?
You might have to go out and come back in.
Can you hear me better?
Nah, you got to go out and come back in.
Okay. All right. We'll do.
All right. I'm gonna kick him out so he'll know to come back in. All right. It's gonna be a great joint, man. Revelation. What's going on, Revelation? You need to go and check out that sa.neter and Easy Bands joint we did a couple of days ago. I got you next. I'm getting you next, Revelation. We're gonna talk about this all these slave scriptures that's in your Bible, brother. And how do you go along with this slave talk from your God, talking about obey your masters and all this nonsense? And while y'all following something like that, knowing what the slave master have done to our ancestors. So you got a lot of explaining to do, brother. So Revelation X got a lot of explaining to do, little brother. Mm-hmm. All right, you back, Chuck. You back.
Javon, how about now?
Yeah, it still sounds choppy.
Okay. Give me let me work my audio. Maybe hold on.
Yeah, you know what? Did you turn off your sound system and turn it back on? Device not connected. Turn off your audio and turn it back on. Let's see what happens. Yeah, say something. Talk to me. Say something.
Hold up.
It sounds a little better. Say something.
A little better.
Yeah, it sounds better now.
Okay. Now my green screen, this thing is not working now. See that?
Yeah, it sounds good now too.
Can you see my green screen?
Yeah, I can see your green screen.
I don't want that shit on.
Right. But it sounds nice and clear now.
I'm clear, but my visuals is not up to par.
All right, try to put your green screen. Try to fix it.
All right,
Try to fix it.
let me lock out. Hold on.
Yeah, just bear with us for a minute, y'all. You know, we got a little technical difficulties, but I'll assure you that the presentation you are about to receive from my man Chuck is going to be a powerful heavy hitter. And Revelation, you sound confident. You sound, let's get it. You sound real confident, brother. Ready when you ready, sir. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds real good, Revelation. We having a little technical difficulties. So just bear with us for a minute. No, Chuck is not a Hebrew, Suntan. He used to be Dr. Malachi York, top soldier in the movement. Information, especially information. Yeah. All right, Chuck. If you want, you can cut your camera off if you don't want the background showing. If you want to. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. I don't need it up. I'm
Yeah,
good. How about now? Is this better?
Yeah, it sounds real good. Yep.
Sounds good. All right.
Yep.
Well, sorry for the technical difficulties, but
All right,
these
there.
things
Carry
happen
on. You
when
got
we're
the floor.
All right. So let me see. So where I was pointing out was that I wanted to bring a little bit of clarity to this whole ancient Sumerian thing, whether they were Black people, they call themselves Black, did they have black heads, etc. So to dispense with all the time that was just lost, let me get right into it. Sa.neter, I'm going to share my screen right quick.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get it in.
All right. Let's get a little bit. All right. Sound good? So the Sumerians, did they have
Sounds
black
good.
heads? This is
Sounds
basically the
good. And
topic.
your screen is sharing.
Great. The topic is the Sumerians, did they have black heads? And that is a term that many people have kind of taken literal in most cases, but there's is a much deeper aspect to it, and we're going to go through that this evening. And it may get technical, bear with me, but I'm trying to minimize all the technical stuff and try to make it real simple and easy. And it's not going to be done in just one setting. We're going to probably do a part 2, 3, because this is pretty extensive, because it not only covers the blackheads itself, but it goes even further than that. So next slide is showing my abstract. So this presentation is about how Sumerian texts use a specific textual expression, sangiga, and what the grammar and these textual sources show. It's not about judging modern identities or denying African history. This presentation critically examines the Sumerian ethnonym sangiga, often translated in early scholarship as blackheads and recently misappropriated in fringe discourse asserted to be something that the Sumerians identified themselves as being Black people, in the racial sense, of course. Drawing on current Assyriological evidence, phonophilological analysis, and contextual reading of primary texts, this study demonstrates that Sangiga functions as a literary, symbolic, and theological designation rather than a racial descriptor. The terms appear predominantly in later Sumerian literature, or three, during that period and onward, and is tied to divine favor and anthropological concepts of humanity, paralleling the Akkadian Zamakagadi as a figurative reference to humanity rather than a phenotype. So earlier and more common autonyms such as Namlulu, human or community of people, lacked any chromatic component. And furthermore, the absence of color-based descriptors in administrative records, where pragmatic physical identification was common, reinforced the non-racialized usage of this word, Sagiga. So this presentation makes use of three key points: how Sagiga appears in ancient manuscripts, how the Sumerian grammar applies in each case, and how the ancient scribes themselves explain using syllabic glosses. For example, these syllabic glosses are short phonetic notes added to cuneiform signs to show how a word was likely pronounced or understood. They typically appear in Sumero-Akkadian textual texts, teaching texts, where scribes explain Sumerian words using Akkadian. The example below is from the sign list A, which is organized into 4 columns. As you see Sumerian in this column, you'll see the cuneiform sign by name, or the sign name. So here, it's the term, the sign is name, and then you have the Akkadian gloss. The Sumerian sign like Gi, black, could be explained using Akkadian Zamu, black, and this shows how the Akkadian scribes interpreted Sumerian words using their own language, using syllabic cuneiform signs. So you look at the gloss, Gi'ig, the sign form, the name of the sign, Gi'ikigu, and you can see the Akkadian Samu, and of course the English black. And because there's no native Sumerian speakers on record, we have no oral traditions, no modern descendants. Akkadian scribes gloss these Sumerian terms syllabically. And these glosses reflect how Akkadian interpreters pronounce words and not necessarily how the original Sumerians spoke it or used it themselves. Akkadian had its own phonology, which differed, and we're looking at it through the lenses of these Akkadians. But this is not necessarily how it was pronounced or how it was used in Sumerian. And I think that was a key point, because people sometimes will use terminology or will pronounce certain words, but we're basing it primarily on Akkadian pronunciations based on these bilingual dictionaries. So let's go here. So the presentation examines Sagiga, which is based in mytho-religious settings, analyzing its morphology components, contrasting it with hypothetical unattested constructions like Namlugi, black people, Namlu Babar, white people, emphasizing their total absence from the Sumerian corpus. Ultimately, the evidence will indicate that the Sumerians didn't conceive of an ethnic or racial identity through our modern color-based categories. Rather, Sagiga reflected the relationship between humanity, the gods, and the king. So, Assyriologists from the past, such as Professor Emeritus of Assyriology, Samuel Kramer, who explained and simplified the meaning of the term Sagiga in his 1963 book, The Sumerians, Their History, Culture, and Character, on pages 284 through 285. On that page, it talks about how inhabiting the 4 corners of the earth were the Namlulu. This is a Sumerian compound word, probably consisting of lu, man, reduplicated, and the particle nam used to form abstract nouns. It therefore corresponds in formation to the English mankind, the Sumerian people, the Blackheads, as they call themselves, from at least 2000 BC on, were only a part of a larger mankind, but needless to say, a very important part. In fact, they were so important a part that at least in one case, the Blackheads seemed to be identified with humanity as a whole. And then we go forward in it. But I think the point is made where if you even read it, where after An, Enki, and Hernsag had fashioned the black-headed people, vegetation luxuriated from the earth, animals, four-legged creatures, and the plain, and brought forth artfully into existence. Here, the blackheads seem to be juxtaposed with plants and animals associated with ants and animals, as if the word referred to mankind as a whole. That's going to come up later in this. I wanted to start it off because that's important. Assertions that the Sumerians were Black people or Kushites isn't supported by the textual evidence. That belief relies on outdated 19th century racial theories, literal interpretations of Sangiga, and superficial word comparisons that ignore the comparative method. This is from the Standard of Oral, 2600 to 2400 BCE. The detail with the chariot soldiers. This is the typical way that the Sumerians described or depicted themselves in their artwork. No blackheads here. Sangiga was an idiom for human beings, not a literal description of black-headed people. Sangiga was a late period linguistic innovation appearing around 2100 BCE. It was invented by the state literary elite to describe a relationship between the king, the gods, and humanity. We don't find them mentioned by that name in the early dynastic periods, early dynastic 1 and 2. The Sumerian gods and kings treated them as beloved sheep, as you can see in this praise to Shulgi, where he makes the point that I am, Shulgi, the herder and the shepherd of humanity, or black-headed. But if you read it, if you read it for how it is understood in the context, humanity, then it flows much better than just stopping and saying, oh, the Black people. Examples. So here we have a black-headed seagull. In the Sumerian descriptive compounds used for animals, uga, mushin, gi, sha, function as literal or taxonomic descriptors, identifying visible traits of specific species. And by contrast, sagiga doesn't function in this way. It's not used to classify or distinguish a type of human being, but appears as a fixed expression referring to humanity as a whole or the collective. The Black Raven. Likewise with this term, you have ugagi. Mushin is a determinative, which is not pronounced. So this is just another reference in Sumerian literature. You'll find this in the inscription at the National Museum of Iraq, where it just basically says that you pound, missing line here, see there's a missing fragmented missing line, of the Black Raven. You mix it with cypress oil, incantation. There's no big deal to this other than just showing you that the Sumerians, if they were specifically speaking about a people that had black heads, literally, or a Black person, we know that they would have put it in their literature. We're over hundreds of thousands, almost up to 1 million at this point. And thus far from what we have been able to uncover and read, we don't find it. Now, Black Boar. This is Shagi, and it just describes animals in a literal, physical sense, identifying their visible coloration. This too stands in contrast to Sagiga, a fixed collective expression in literary and ideological contexts. In an administrative text such as those from Perridge, Dagan in the Or-3 period, animals are described with precise literal color terminology: black sheep, white sheep. And this is for inventory and classification purposes. This demonstrates how Sumerian uses color descriptively when physical distinction is intended. No comparable uses exist for humans, with Sangiga confirming that it doesn't function as a literal color classification for people. Modern terms like redhead describe a specific physical trait, hair color, and not the entire people or any biological category. Professor Kramer's analysis was clear. He observed that in mythological context, the term black-headed appears as humanity and not as a phenotypic group. Sagiga was a name derived in part from the Akkadian word Zamakkakadi, which is humanity, which would have been the Akkadian gloss of the name Namlu'ulu. As Professor Kramer indicated, Sangiga was a term the Sumerians would refer to themselves as shortly after the Akkadian and Gutian occupations. However, the concept behind the name didn't change, and Professor Kramer understood this, and that's why he made that point clear to put it in his book when talking about the history and origins of the Sumerians. So I just wanted to make that point clear, that we don't find this name Sangiga until the later periods. Prior to that, they referred to themselves as Namlulu. Namlu'ulu was a term used to identify humans, people, flocks of humans as a whole. Today's Assyriologist, one being a professor of Near Eastern languages and civilizations at Yale University's Dr. Eckhart Fram, in the cuneiform comparative commentaries project, CCP, these scholars demonstrate how ancient scribal glosses directly equates mankind, the people, and humanity. Vivid evidence that Sangiga was well understood by ancient Mesopotamian scholars themselves as a universal term for humanity, leaving no room for racialized reinterpretation. From the CCP series is a first millennium bilingual commentary clay tablet from the Assyrian scribal traditions, and Sangiga is explicitly glossed or translated by those ancient commentaries. The text belongs to the Udukhul corpus with commentary on Udukhul 2 and 4. It's a Mesopotamian incantation series used for exorcistic ritual purposes and is preserved in a scholastic clay tablet from the house of the exorcist at Ashur. If the ancient Mesopotamians, of course, using their grammar, thought that Sangiga meant a group of Black people, this would have been the clay tablet where we would have found it, but they didn't. Here is Udukhul, house of the exorcist. And if you look at the very top here, you'll see this is the Sumerian, written in the Akkadian form, because this is a bilingual text and it's during the period of the Babylonians. So at the top line, you have it in Sumerian. You have Nam Lulu Shangiga K. And below it, you'll see right here, Amalutu, you have it in Akkadian. And it translates as mankind, the people, the black-headed. This is clear. Each threefold sounds Trinity-like. The Akkadian Babylonian gloss shows how the ancient scribes understood the Sumerian phrase as a general term for people, humanity, and not a racial label. Give you a chance to take a look at that. In the Sumerian grammar, the genitive of is ak, though its surface form may be reduced to a or la due to the phonological process. In Sumerian, the phrase sagiga doesn't mean head of black or describes a physical trait. The ga is not a genitive. It comes from a normal grammatical ending, and the spelling looks that way because of how Sumerian transliteration writes out sounds. So the phrase is simply a fixed expression meaning humanity, not a literal or anatomic statement. In context, it functions as a standard way of referring to people, humans, humankind, mankind. So I just wanted to point out because sometimes we have these types of interpretations, but it's just not accurate according to the grammar. So mankind, the people, the black-headed. The sequence Nam Lu'ulu, humanity, Ung, people, the collective, and Sangiga are co-referential, not a list of separate groups. In present, multiple similar expressions referring to the same humanity as a whole, Nam Lu'ulu denotes humanity in an abstract collective sense, while Ug refers to the people as a populace, and the expression Sangiga is a conventional epithet used, of course, for humankind, and does not function as an ethno-biological label. And these terms operate within the same semantic field and are stacked for rhetorical classification. And this is confirmed by the Akkadian equivalent, of course, Zamakagadi, which likewise denotes humanity rather than a specific ethnic category. Again, the genitive in Sumerian is ak, not ga. You can find this on Bowen and Lewis's book, page 30. It may seem kind of rhetorical and redundant, but the point has to be driven. And anything that have questions, we can, of course, go into it. So the suffix K or the K4 marks the subject, the doer of the sentence. In this line, the whole phrase Nam Lu'ulu Ung Sangiga works together as one unit, meaning mankind. And this shows the phrase is unified and referring to the same group and not a separate or racial category. Again, if the Sumerians wanted to say of, well, we didn't, I'm just kind of being redundant. But even if they did want to say it, we would just have a different ending. For example, you have a Lugala, house of, says a la Luga, which is house of the king. And that structure is not what we see with Sagiga. So grammatically, the phrase is a fixed expression referring to groups of people and not the populace. A Lugal, it's the genitive. So two excellent sources on the grammar verifying this. You can go to Dr. Otto Edzardt's, his 2003 book, Sumerian Grammar, which shows that Sumerian classifies nouns as humans versus non-humans, not by physical or racial traits. Within this system, Sangiga refers to humanity as a group, and of course, not as a racial description. For example, in chapter 5, the general, you have Sumerian substantives lack gender, but are strictly divided into two classes, person and non-person. And that is important. This is why we had to go through all the stuff way down to this point. And even in Bram Jagersman's book, A Descriptive Grammar of Sumerian, 2010, he further clarifies the structure of such forms, where he points out how Sagiga, the sequence written ga, is not an independent adjectival suffix, but the result of gi, black, plus the suffix a, with the G doubled according to the standard Sumerian orthographic conventions. And together, the grammatical system, Edzardt, and the morphological analysis of Jagersman show that Sangiga operated as a conventional collective designation for humanity. A similar co-reference is attested in the Sumerian inscription, the rulers of Lagad. Nam Lu'ulu, mankind, Numun, Nam Lu'ulu, seed of mankind, and Sangiga, humanity. These Earth 3 Sumerian scribes used them to describe human beings generally. The Akkadian gloss in the Udukul commentary supports this, where the scribes explicitly define Sangiga, humanity, and together these texts confirm that the term was universal and ideological, not referring to any phenotypical group or phenotype. And if you look at the rulers of Lagash, you'll see that what it talks about after the flood that swept over and destroyed the lands, when mankind was made to endure and the seed of mankind was preserved, humanity was restored to its former vitality. And it's really clear, maybe a little breakdown of this, but we just look at how Nam Lu'ulu and all the different forms. If you look at it in the grammar, you see how certain things are done specifically and why they chose these terminologies and words. So yeah, lines 3 and 5 of the rulers of Lagash makes it clear. Nam Lu'ulu and humans return, humans repopulated, and humanity resumed. And there's zero references to anything that's considered racial in this text. So after the first creation phase, man behaves as a beast. In the second phase, man obtains the instruments for the establishment of culture, and ultimately they become true humans, the first real humans in the Sumerian creation myth, as a gift from the gods, having the ability to revere the Anunnaki, the royal seed. Although sang was used sometimes to denote the literal head, it's also used to denote the first, the top, foremost. Context is key. This word sang was used to mean head, and it's also used to denote the first. So you'll find this in various inscriptions. And this one in particular is dealing with livestock. It says Mar Sang. Mar translates as a young calf, a young animal, a youngster. Sang translated, of course, as head or front, even the first. Therefore, Amar Sang literally translates as head calf or first calf, the foremost calf. When following the context of this inscription, line 10 designates a calf just as the foremost humans that is either the leader of the herd or the firstborn of the herd. So I just need to put that part in as well. With example after example, it's clear that the Sumerians knew the difference between a blackhead versus a black-skinned person. Here, the Sumerians identify livestock and other items as completely black rather than just having a black head. You have duhgi, black beard, udugi, black sheep, shagi, black pig, mashgalgi, large black bully goat, and on tongue. The point is clear. The entire text corpus of Sumerian literature thus far has no example of black being applied to a people or humans, which is typically would have been, as we have gone over and over, Nam Lu'ulu as versus Nam Lu Babar or Nam Lugi, black people, black humanity versus white people. And I do this also for, if I'm arguing with people online that may belong to white supremacist groups, because they had a tendency to jump on the same thing and say, well, the Sumerians were white because look, they have blue eyes and on and on and on. They get shot down easy. Certainly, the Mesopotamians knew of it. They even had artifacts of them. Here, for example, is a figure, one of 6, which is now housed in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is a figure of a man with an auroch, a monkey, and a leopard skin. And how it has here is that below two arched niches built into the wall of a room at Fort Shalmaneser, a royal building at Nimrud that was probably used to store booty and tribute collected by the Assyrians while on military campaigns. You can go, and of course, Brother Reggie would definitely have known this or seen this. You can find this in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Brother Zangles has seen this as well, and have gone over this, and it's very clear that they were very aware of who we were. However, in Sumerian literature, they don't point it out. And excuse me. In an Assyrian inscription, not Sumerian, the Assyrians describe Black people as having black skin like asphalt, a direct reference to Kushites and not Sumerians. The text explicitly lists Taharka, his wives and sons and daughters, as the family of Kushite rulers taken as booty in a fragmentary cuneiform tablet, as you can pull online as K8692, where if we read the translation, his wives, his sons, and daughters, whose bodies, like his, have black skins like asphalt, bitumen, he counted as booty. You can find this also in Taharka, King of Cush, and the Assyrians by Daniel Khan, W.G. Lambert's Booty from Egypt. Now here's these are hypothetical case endings, and I put these up here to illustrate the point of how if it were to be used grammatically, you would be able to see it. So you have sagi, and you have this in the absolutive, which is endingless, sangigi, which is the ergative for collective. You have sangiga, which is lacking, this here lacks any genitive. If you wanted to see it being tested, of course, you'll see lugal or a lugal la. You have the terminative, sangi she. You have the dative, sangira, dative 2 or 4. Sangida, the comative, with sangigin, the equative, like in the same manner, similar, like in the same manner. And of course, the locative, where you have sangi-a. So these are all hypothetical, meaning they are not even attested in any one of the Sumerian inscriptions where you find Sangiga mentioned, which is only in the thousands of Sumerian inscriptions. You only find 104 that mention Sangiga. So I'm demonstrating that the interpretation is not supported in the Sumerian textual uses. If true, then we'd find the following in Sumerian literature, which we don't. My Black person, 2 or 4 Black people, with the Black people, towards the Black people, in the Black people, like the Black people. When you check the actual corpus, which is the entire body of Sumerian literature, you can find this in the CDLI, the EPSD, ORIC. All of these are online databases that has Sumerian words and the literature where they can be located, that you can read full text in context. So it's not just pulling up one word and then building an argument around that single word. You need context. You have to go to this inscription. You have to see it from the Sumerian perspective. And that's what I had to do over a 5-year period going through this stuff. Because it was just something that I enjoy doing, because over the years I've seen people like Zechariah Sitchin, Billy Carson, Dr. York, and all these people will talk about Sumerians and Sumerian claims, but many of the things that they're claiming is not found in the inscriptions. It's just their fantasized worldview of what they want the Sumerians to say, and this is what they taught the people. So, and when you're looking at genuine ethnonyms, which you do see in Sumerian literature, in this case, you have Lu Uriki Mara, to the men of the city of Ur, You have Lu Shuber Ki Mada, together with the Sumerian men, Suber and Elam. Let me say this. So when you look at Suber, and you see this little thing where I have it put this key, this is letting you know that it's talking about a place. Key is a term, it's a determinative used to let you know that it's a city or a place. Likewise, here you see with Alam. And they appear in hundreds of case forms across all periods, proving that grammar fully supports ethnonyms when they function as ethnonyms. Sangiga does it. Sumerian ethnonyms appear with plural markers like ane, determinatives, case endings, possessives, and verbal agreements. Sangiga lacks any of the above. If it meant Black people, then we'd see it mentioned in every case. We don't, because that's not what they were trying to get across. They were speaking of the people, and these people were, this is how they saw themselves and how they were created to serve the gods and the king. Sagiga is attested as early as my favorite Sumerian, Gudea of Lagash, and continued through to the Or3 and later periods. Or3 textual sources is where the term becomes common, not when it was invented. So even Professor Kramer stated that Sagiga from at least 2000 BC on, which is a minimum date for the widespread use of this term. Now, the following description and interpretation in this inscription from the Sumerian text called the Song of the Hoe will lay this point out really clear. So, of course, it's a cuneiform form, and we have the transliteration. And in this translation, you can pull this up on the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. He set the first of mankind, which he had been cased in a brick mold. Toward Enlil, his land broke through the ground. He directed a true eye toward this black-headed one, these black-headed ones. The Anuna bowed to him and performed prostration. Their hands at his feet they placed. They soothed Enlil with prayer. The people, the blackheads, the black-headed ones, with him, Enlil, they spoke. The Song of the Hoe electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. Now, why am I pulling this up? Because it kind of ties into a number of other things where people talk about, and man was created from the dust of the ground. In the way, in many of the, in Sumerian, depending on which city state, you have various creation epics, various creation stories. One says it was done this way. One says they took one god, they mixed their blood with his. There is nothing talking about Sumerian gods mixing blood with primates. That's York and Sitchin nonsense. But this is important because what I wanted to do, well, I pointed out here. The passage is describing the creation of human beings by Enlil, who forms the first humans from clay taken from the ground, placing them into a mold, like shaping figures to take human form. As the land begins to break open towards Enlil, which is a symbolic reference to life emerging from the soil, Enlil being pleased with these newly created, remember, and God saw, never. And the people identified as Sangiga, the first humans formed from the earth itself. At this moment, the gods stepped forward, bowing before Enlil in prayer. The Anuna requested the humans to be released so humanity can begin their role in the world to serve, sustain, and maintain via divine order. I placed this particular passage into Google AI because I wanted to get a visual of it. And this is what Google AI had gave me back as a visual description of this. Check it out. You see that over there? See? So here we have these moles. This is what the Sumerians, they're going back in the Song of the Hoe talks about. And when I saw it, I said, oh wow, this takes me back, because like my father, like I've said people, my father was an insomniac, which made me an insomniac as well. But we used to watch a bunch of documentaries, and he was always into a lot of the information thing. I'm into it. But this part right here reminded me of something. Maybe that's why I was so fascinated. And sa.neter, you're old enough to remember. This go back to 1963. There was this movie called Jason and the Argonauts. Ray Harryhausen was made famous because of the stop motion animation. And you remember there's a scene where the skeletons, they rise up after the serpent. What was it called? I forget what it was called. Can't remember the name of it, but the serpent, after they killed the serpent, and then the priest takes the bones and he takes it in a bag, and then he goes out and he goes before Jason and his Argonauts, and then he casts the bones and tells them to rise up and kill Jason. The only reason I'm bringing that out is because when you see them rise up, they look almost like this. But this is that generated image. So here we have the actual depiction of Enlil in his temple in Nippur, which is called Nibru. Not Nibiru, Nibru. That was where the Sumerians had erected, and that was one of the most sacred sites in Mesopotamia, which was Nibru. And that was where you'll find the deity Enlil. And so we have the mole, they sprout up before Enlil. The gods or the Anuna come forward because they want to get on the good side so that they can get these people and let them fit within the framework of society. Think of that. Then there's the Sumerian flood tablet. That's what it's called, the Sumerian flood tablet. After the gods restored humanity, the text explicitly states that An, Enlil, Enki, and Hersag fashioned humanity before populating the world with animals. This is what this is what Samuel Kramer had pointed out earlier, that the purging of mankind for Nintud, I will stop the annihilation of my creatures, and I will return the people from their dwelling ground. Let them build many cities so that I can refresh myself in their shade. Let them lay the bricks of many cities in pure places. Let them establish places of divination in pure places. And when the fire quenches, missing tablet, I'm missing fragment, is arranged, the divine rights and exalted powers are perfected, and the earth is irrigated. I will establish well-being there. After An, Enlil, Enki, and in her saga had fashioned the black-headed or humanity, they also made animals multiply everywhere and made herds of four-legged animals exist on the plains as is befitting. This is in the flood tablet, also called the deluge tablet, CBS 106673. The consistency of this language across independent genres, cosmogonic, myth, and flood narratives shows that black-headed referred to mankind, at times formed from the soil of the earth, not an ethnic or racial term. Both texts anchor human identity in the material symbolism of clay, earth, and divine craftsmanship. Neither assigns the term to any geographic, political, or biological category, rendering it an ethnonym. Taken together, both the Song of the Hoe and the Sumerian flood story demonstrates that humanity is created from soil, animated by divine command, Enlil, universally labeled Samgiga, people the gods made. Even in the Neo-Assyrians maintain the narrative of the Sumerians, the following passage is from the famous Legend of Sargon, Sargon Birth Legend, a Neo-Assyrian literary work composed as a first-person autobiography of the first emperor, following a description of his rise from a humble gardener to the beloved of the goddess Ishtar, Sargon, the legitimate king, that's what his name is supposed to be, asserts that his legitimacy by claiming dominion over the Sumerian people. A Mesopotamian metaphor, which is Zamat, likening the king's subjects to well-tended flocks, reinforcing the idea of a unified, universal empire under a single divinely sanctioned ruler who is Sargon. So, of course, you can see through the transliteration, you have humanity, I did rule and govern. While Sargon is an Akkadian king, he, or the later scribes writing about him, used this specific Sumerian phrase to connect his reign to the older, prestigious traditions of the early dynastic period that preceded him. In fact, the Akkadians left icons of the Sumerians in the form of a relief known as Sargon's victory seal. The relief shows, there's one below, and you'll find this in the Louvre Museum, SB3. It's one of the most important visual documents for understanding what the Sumerians actually looked like in the late 3rd millennium BCE. This fragment depicts a captured Sumerian prisoners being marched by the Akkadian soldier during the expansion of the Akkadian Empire under Sargon. And if you look closely, you'll see the physical description or depiction is not symbolic. So you can see the difference. It's not just like the standard of or. It's not an allegory. It's the stylized. It's to resemble another ethnicity. The prisoners are shown with precise, observable features that match the biological and cultural population of the southern part of Mesopotamia, not Africa. Archaeologists such as Lorenzo Negro, Steinkeller, Oates emphasize that the stele, or Stele, preserves a South Mesopotamian profile, especially the distinct straight to wavy hair known from the early dynastic depictions on the standard of Ur. Close it. Hey, close that door. Sorry, somebody's inside for that reason. All right, so this Akkadian relief here is valuable because it depicts his real enemies, not idealized figures. Its purpose was propaganda to show who was conquered. And in this case, we see Lugal Zaghazi of Uruk. And he is one of the characters you can see. And this is very famous because he and his army, they're trying to escape out of this. Well, we'll take a look at it. In addition to the Sargon stele, you have the Eannatum Vulture stele. And if you look at it closely, this confirms that the visual profile seen on Sargon's victory stele was already the standard in early dynastic Sumerian art. This continuity across independent Sumerian city-states, Lagash, Umma, and Kish, demonstrates that these features were not inventions of Akkadian propaganda, but the standard way Sumerians represented themselves and their neighbors, because this monument predates the Akkadian Empire by more than a century, and it provides independent Sumerian confirmation of the same anatomical profile seen on Sargon's victory stele. This exact hair pattern, waves, curve in parallel ridges, appears only on SB3. Right here, you'll see it in Lorenzo Negro's scholarly paper, The Two Steles of Sargon, where he states that the hairstyle of the prisoners, curly hair on top, short hair on the sides, is characteristic of Sumerians, as also seen on the standard of Ur. And you'll see that right here. You can pull that up. The two steles of Sargon, iconology of visual propaganda at the beginning of the royal Akkadian. So here we have Eannatum's stele of the Vulture, and you have Sargon's victory stele of SB2. And here we can see how the Sumerians depicted themselves. You have Eannatum, and then you have Sargon. Now this is important because this is if you look at the standard of ore, you look at many of the Kish artifacts, they have the same depiction. But when we look at Sargon's victory stele, the only thing that's slightly different is how the hair is cut. If you notice, it's long on the top with a slight carve or curve. Why? Well, the standard of Ur and the Sargon victory stele, the Akkadian period, show clear continuity of how Sumerians were depicted. Now, these figures display consistent features, narrow facial profiles, similar hairstyles, and proportional anatomy. The standard of Ur reflects Sumerian self-representation, while Sargon's stele shows Akkadian depictions of conquered populations, yet both portray the same visual type. See here? And then you have this here. Here, these are captives. But why do they have the hair cut like that, like a filly? Well, the evidence shows that Akkadian artists adopted and preserved an already established Southern Mesopotamian visual canon, confirming that the figures on Sargon's victory stele represents the same local population depicted earlier by Sumerian artists. The distinctive facial modeling and hair morphology directly parallel early dynastic Sumerian military imagery, particularly the standard of Ur and the war scene and the stele of the vultures, confirming that the South Mesopotamian province of the prisoners. Now, the Mesopotamian legal and lexical sources, hair modification, especially partial or half shaved, is well attested as a mark of punishment, humiliation, or bondage. Akkadian terms such as gulu'ubu, I'm still learning Akkadian, so pardon my expression. The two meaning to shave, and to shave half of the head. Explicitly, this describes the practice as a sign of subjugation, reinforcing the interpretation that the altered hairstyles on Sargon's stele function as visual indicators of visual captive status. You can find this in the Concise Dictionary of Akkadian. Now, this is edited by Jeremy Black, Andrew George, Nicholas Polskate on page 96. Goes into it explicitly. The scholarly analysis consistently interprets this form, and I'm wrapping this up, it's by one of the last slides, interprets this form of having shaven hair as humiliating. For example, in the latest Sumerian dictionary by Dr. Mark Cohen, he lists the Eannatum law in reference and immediately follows it with the explanatory legal comparison. Like the one who has had half his hair shaved off, he possesses no dignity. Cohen's entry explicitly links this idiom to Eannatum, column 25, which is why scholars treat it as an explanatory of the legal penalty, rather than something that is incidental. So the same, thank you. So the same linkage appears in the EPSD 8391B and the COD M231OB, where you have the Akkadian level parallels. This demonstrates that half-shaven functions as formal humiliation, as form of a humiliation ritual. Right here where it says, and this is from the annotated Sumerian dictionary. The laws of Eannatum prescribe half-shaving as a punishment. A standard Sumerian legal comparison attested in lexical sources states, like one who has had half his hair shaved off, he has no dignity. And you will find this, I took a page out of it so you can see it for yourself. And you can match that with how these captives were humiliated by one parading around naked and shaving half their head. And this is how it's lost the inscription itself. And I wanted to end this presentation here because, as you can see, it goes on and on and on into whole new areas. But we'll stop this one here, and we'll pick it up the next time that we begin with a part 2. Okay. So, sa.neter, where are you? He stepped away. So, since he stepped away, let me see if I can grab, because I'm not in front of my, let me pull up, see if I can grab some questions that's in the chat right now. Yeah, let me see if I can grab this. Yeah, so and it was that Mesopotamian folklore is identical to that of the Veda Hindu text. Veda Hindu mentioned human life on other worlds and spaceships. For that to be Mesopotamian folklore, we don't find spaceships mentioned in Sumerian literature. So I don't know, maybe the Vedas are not into Hinduism. And other than when I deal with, speaking of Maluha, Magan, and Dilmun, I don't really deal much with anything dealing with India per se, or the Indus Valley. But there was definitely a trade and connection between Sumerians and the people of the Indus Valley. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just had to make a quick bathroom run, man.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, excellent presentation, of course. I knew you was coming with the info. And that's part 1, right?
This is part 1, and I just wanted to lay down the grammatical portion to where we can fully understand. I don't care about the background. Everybody know my green screen, but anyway, I just wanted to put that part out there because that has always been a stumbling block for people. Because other than just saying black-headed, they really didn't have anything to go on as it pertained to that. So we know that Sangiga was just a term, an idiom that they used to identify mankind. And mankind, if we use it in today's terms, the people, is how they describe it, making reference to themselves.
Yes. Okay. All right. Hey, so we're gonna open it up to see if anybody have any courage to come through to ask some questions. You know, hopefully y'all got a little bit of courage out there. Y'all can ask some questions, any questions you want pertaining to this information.
No, I'm not here to argue. Maybe we can talk to people and we can reach a common ground, you know.
Right.
My debate, I've been debating since the 90s. I'm retired, but go ahead.
All right. Hey, son, what's going on, man? You got any questions for the brother, Chuck?
Yeah, I want to ask him one question. Peace to you, Chuck. My question is this right here. You're not suggesting that the Sumerians was any other color but black, or what is your primary stand on coloration back in antiquity at that time?
It's kind of hard to hear. Can you reiterate his points on that?
Say it again, Santan.
I was saying, can you hear me pretty good now? Chuck, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
I was asking about the color distinction. Was it prevalent back in that time that not we, but black people were named as Sumerians, or was it Arabs, or who was the Sumerians as you in your research tell you?
Okay, I think I'm not sure if you caught the whole.
I saw the whole thing, and you were saying that they wasn't meaning it by skin color. You were saying they wasn't meaning it by people. They was naming animals and heads and such things of that nature. However, I was just wondering if you did any in-depth research to say who those people really were.
Yes, and that's part of the presentation, that they identified themselves and the people around them identified them. And they used the term that they themselves, meaning the Sumerians, refer to themselves as, not as anything that's pertaining to something racial. That came later. In fact, we find that mentioned specifically in going into the Neo-Assyrian periods, because we have direct evidence where the Neo-Assyrians directly communicated with African people. In Sumerian literature, we just don't have evidence currently. Now, because there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of clay tablets, cone tablets, bone, and on, we may find something down the road, but the current scholarship doesn't have that documented.
Okay, I want to say this too, because the tablets you show, they don't have the phenotype of maybe I'm just making a blanket statement. They don't have the phenotype of African Americans. They look more European to me. So my question to you, because of the curliness of the beard, they just, the phenotype don't look European. And I find it, Chuck, I want to just be clear. I have a lot of people in our the circle here that says even Egyptians, when no black people had not black, but no dark people looking like us had no influence back in antiquity. What would you say about that?
Well, I try to, because I focus primarily on Mesopotamian studies, I try to step away from the whole Egyptian thing.
Okay.
I mean, I started off, studying Meta-neter, Jaru, Smash, but my focus has always been on Mesopotamia, because that was pretty much how I started in the 70s in learning about this stuff, at least becoming familiar with it, and then really exploring it more towards the 90s.
Mesopotamia, that was the Arabs, right?
Say again?
Mesopotamia was the Arabs.
Okay, so the location on the map where we have Mesopotamia, you have southern Iraq, you have what some people interpret as the Middle East.
Yeah, they made that up.
Depending on the city-state, the location it determines that population, because you got to understand, the Sumerians, Mesopotamia, had been conquered by other groups multiple times.
Okay.
You had the people from the Zagros Mountains, the Gudayans. They pushed the Akkadians out. They conquered them. These were a wild-ass group of people, as they're described in the inscriptions on both sides, Akkadian and Sumerian. And they had no, they speak about a people that were so savage, they had no idea or concept of writing. They had no understanding of how to clean themselves, food, eat. They ate raw meat, raw food. And
they were barbarians.
A lot of the stereotypes we had of people coming out of the caves in the hills of Europe, this is how they describe the peoples of Gudi. But these people occupied Sumer at a point, and the last king was Sargon, and he was pushed out by a Sumerian king named Utu-Hagal. And this brought about what we know today as the Sumerian Renaissance period. Now, further to the south, you had Gudea of Lagash, who was the Insi, or the king or ruler there. And they seemed to have continued, they had a continuing or thriving Sumerian civilization. It was more further towards the north that you had this conflict with the Agouti or the Akkadian. Okay. And it was, again, during this quote unquote Renaissance period, which is what some people refer to it as. It was at this point where the abundance of clay tablets started becoming written. After the Gutians were removed, the whole society decided to bring back their culture and the prestige of being Sumerian. And that was Eannatum, Shulgi, and on and on and on. And shortly thereafter that, through drought, war with the Elamites, the Gutians still coming through, the Amaru, the Amorites, it ultimately led to the demise in what's written in the text called the Lament of Or, which was the downfall of Sumer, and where the people were scattered, separated, and then we have a group of people that moved in what we know today as Babylonians. So we can't base it on today's standards of who the people are occupying the region now,
Yeah.
because it had been conquered, mixed, and on so forth. So what we have is the records that the Sumerians left, or the Akkadians left themselves, about themselves, that we kind of go off of, or we rely on. And going back to the earlier periods, the current scholarship is, and it kind of puts the end to the whole Sumerian problem, is what it was called, on who the Sumerians were. The evidence is showing how the Sumerians evolved out of the Ubaid periods, or the Ubaid people, because Ubaid, and then the Uruk, and then what we get, which are known as Sagiga. And if it wasn't for writing, we wouldn't know anything about the Sumerians.
Okay, my last question, because I don't see nobody hopped up on the panel yet. So my last question is this right here. You know Zion Lex, right? So he studied hard on Sumer, and he brought up a lot of points that you bringing up, but just in a little different way. So I was just making a presumption that they were dark-skinned people, because in antiquity period, and this is a direct question, and I ended on this. We can't name, because they had no sort of race. That race thing wasn't going on back then. So you really can't name who was doing what back then. You could just name them by the names that they was given in history. You can't name them by the phenotype or nothing like that. Did you get me?
Other than what he was mentioning about Zion Lex, he and I have been having a few shows together. We've been having dialogue over this, and I've been sharing with him the information. And we grow as we learn.
Right.
And what he says, he just wants the truth. And even when reading Samuel Kramer, and Samuel Kramer is just a classic Assyriologist from the past. But today we have so many Assyriologists and Sumerologists that it kind of left them guys in the dirt, not dismissing anything, because their work speaks for itself, but because there's so many people that have moved on, and there have been so many discoveries of tablets since then, we have a better working knowledge of the Sumerian civilization that we may not have had back in the 1960s.
All right, thanks. We got somebody else on.
Okay.
You muted, Si.
Turn your camera on, Cosmon.
Oh.
Thanks for that, Chuck. He dropped off, Si.
Yeah.
Hey, Chuck, if you can hear me, thanks for the insight.
I don't know why. I'm gonna have to probably try to work with my system, because it's real hard to hear. I hear me, I hear sa.neter, but it's kind of difficult to hear
the panel,
hear you or anyone else.
Okay, and I'm talking kind of loud too. All right, it was a guy, so he's in the let me see if he's still there. Richard something. He was, sending a lot of apps and stuff like that. And I told him to hop on the panel. He had a lot of conjecture and a lot of panel. Let me see what his name is. I told him to come on up. His name Richard James. Richard James.
Turn on your camera, King J.
All right, hold on 1 second, real quick, sir. Hold on 1 second. I got to throw on a t-shirt.
Richard James, if you there, Richard James 16V. He did a lot of donations, sir. Richard James 16V. I guess he don't want to jump up. Cal back too.
Yeah. Salute, Sa.
All right, peace, Cosmon. What's up, man?
I seen the brother up here building, man. I love your topic. Salute out to you, Chuck Morgan. I've never heard of you, brother, but you're from my estimation, you got top-notch work, brother. And I heard you bring up the Ubaid and the Uruk period. Could you speak towards Mesopotamian or Sumerian influence on pre-dynastic Egypt?
Okay. In that area, from what I've been able to find, other than maybe through trade, you had some type of influence where it came down to cylinder seals. That system, I think that may have been one of the key influences on Kemetic or Kemetan populations as far as that trade system would go. But as far as a direct working together, we don't have any evidence of that.
What would you say for people who say that there was?
You got to talk up a little bit.
Oh, can you hear me now, brother?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of work out there that shows Sumerian or Mesopotamian, Egyptian influence culturally, writing wise, like you're saying with the cuneiform type writing and the precursors to what they know as the cartouche and all that thing, pyramid building. And then we find the oldest depiction of a ruler in pre-dynastic Egypt is the Sumerian Lugal Ensi, the so-called shepherd king, 3500 on the Gabak el Arachne. So how do we explain that during the Uruk period, when we know Uruk is one of the earliest Sumerian cities, and they're naming the period after that? How do we separate the influence when many archaeologists and such say that there was primarily a one-way influence into Egypt from Mesopotamia during Ubaid?
Kind of hard to hear, but try to, if what you're saying, I'm gathering what you're saying is right. You're talking about an influence on Kemet by way of Uruk
culturally.
Well, yeah, that ties into what I was mentioning a little bit earlier, was through possible trade in passing, not direct connections, but in passing, where say someone came across these cylinders, because at that time these cylinders, well, cylinder seals, were a form of pictures, and depending on the period, they started putting in a form of writing, but that would be after. We don't have writing in the Ubaid period. We don't.
So none of the cuneiform writing of like the Kish tablets, those are during the Ubaid period, or actually the Uruk period. Excuse me. That's during the Uruk period.
Now I got that. No, cuneiform comes during the 3100 period under what we know as the Sumerians proper. You have what's considered,
what year was that, sir?
Proto. I hate that word. You have what's considered proto cuneiform, which are pictures, which is these little
it's pictographic writing.
Pull it up, but these are not. These are what they use to codify or compartmentalize livestock and things, but not a standard writing that we know today as writing under the Ubaid. The Ubaids. Now, when you get down to Uruk and places like that, that's where that development began, which is why you had this problem, what they call the Sumerian problem, because they're trying to account for how they were able to just pop up and then have this form of writing. But it was a gradual process. As their societies developed and got bigger, they needed to put these things into a form of writing. But going back to the
have you ever thought that the writing? Have you ever considered that the writing came from a different area, maybe more eastern and western? And this is how places like Persia, you dig what I'm talking about, Persepolis and all, if they have this ancient writing, then we see it in Susa, and then it would go to Sumer, Babylon, because it's moving like in in like a east-western pattern, and maybe this is why they call those dominant areas at the time sun kingdoms.
I really can't hear you. I really, unfortunately, I can't hear you
right now.
I can understand.
Hey, Chuck,
I think or what?
Chuck, you hear me?
But it's difficult for me to hear you. But,
Chuck, do you hear me?
If anybody else can reiterate that point,
no, you can't even hear me. Yo, Chuck,
again?
Chuck, can you hear me?
I don't think he can hear you.
Yeah, go ahead, son.
All right, yo, Chuck, maybe if you turn off your sound system and all of that and just let it come out the computer, you can hear it better. So I suggest that you just take off your headphones.
Yeah, let me do that.
Take off your headphones, cut your sound system off and just let it come out your computer.
Yeah. Hold on. All right. Say something.
Yeah. Testing 1, 2.
Give me a second, Stele. Let me work this thing real quick. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
That's not working either. I can't. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Nope. Hold on.
You can't hear me.
How about everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Man,
Definitely can hear you.
trying to get this thing to be the best it could be, and then it turns out. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
There you go. Now I can hear you.
All right.